In an antiquated castle, amid mountains raw and peaky, lived a noble Scottish Gublin called the Laird of Inversneekie. He was loved by all the ladies and respected by the men, and he had a bonny daughter known as Bessie o' the Glen. On the day we start our story, he approached her and he said, "You're a grown-up lassie, Bessie, and it's time that you were wed. Here's a list of worthy suitors. Each has pleaded for your hand. I have checked them all for title, ancient castle, wealth, and land." And he hastily departed, thus avoiding any ructions, to tell his wife he'd carried out her most precise instructions. Then the girl perused the paper, and each name she turned down flat, for these men were all too boring, or too thin, or short, or fat. As she mused about the matter, a young farrier passed by, and she rushed up to the window, letting out a startled cry. For although he wasn't handsome, he was what she'd like to win, with his eyes so bright and shiny and his gratifying grin. Then she called her maid and asked her, "Who is shoeing father's horse?" "Why, that's Alastair MacLaren. He's the blacksmith's son, of course." With this useful information, Bessie's eyes began to gleam, and she craftily concocted a cunning little scheme. Minutes later, in the courtyard, where the youth was busy shoeing, from a nearby first-floor window came a female voice, hallooing. "Would you very kindly help me? I'd be grateful, sir, if you would assist in the recovery of my mistress's best shoe." He retrieved the shoe and held it just as high as he could reach. Then he found that he was looking at a lovely Gublin peach, and his heart began a-thumping as he gazed into her eyes. But of course he didn't know that it was Bessie in disguise. The ensuing conversation, of a very casual kind, was enough to prove their hearts were inextricably entwined. Bessie ran and told her father that she'd fallen for a farrier, but he pointed out the presence of a stringent social barrier. "It is best that you forget him. We will soon obtain another. It's a shame you ever met him. I shouldn't tell your mother." For a week she sobbed in sadness, and she desperately foraged for a suitable solution in her breakfast bowl of porridge. Then, one day, a strange thing happened. When out walking, Bessie found a tartan tam o' shanter lying lonely on the ground. There was no one near to claim it, so she started back for home, and she suddenly encountered what appeared to be a gnome. "Ye have found the missing Tommy I've been searching for since noon, and to show that I am grateful, I will grant to ye a boon." Now, our Bess had heard that Doonies still existed in these parts, who were rather good at dabbling in the necromantic arts, so she gave him a resume of her troubles and her grief, and he took his hat and told her he'd be pleased to take the brief. In the morning, Bessie's nanny got a very nasty shock when she found her charge transmuted into quite a handsome clock. There was general consternation, and the laird got in a state when he couldn't quite decide if he should wind up Bessie's weight. Came a knocking at the portal. Young MacLaren, looking smart, all the night the canny Doonie had rehearsed him in his part. "I will cure your ailing daughter. I will free her from these rigours, and her face will have a nose and mouth instead of hands and figures. But when the job's completed, you must clearly understand that I'll have your full permission to approach her for her hand." Straight away the laird accepted, and he swore an oath upon it. So the youth approached the timepiece, and he kept it with the bonnet. With a sound like rushing water and vibrations of its case, the clock disintegrated, leaving Bessie in its place. Now the laird's enlarged his household, and he feels, when all is done, that he hasn't lost a daughter, he has simply gained a son.